Good morning, everyone. Before beginning, I'd like to ask everyone to make sure to choose your interpretation language at the bottom of your screen. And here are some instructions for doing so. We're going to get started in just 1 minute. Wonderful. Once again, welcome everyone. Our team is ready and roaring and ready to go. So welcome to the Seminar 2021 IFNS. This presentation. It'll be presented by the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill, Barbados, Shortwood Teachers College of Jamaica. And so much for joining us, and team, I will let you take it away.
Good morning, colleagues. This is Claudette from the School of Education, Cave Hill in Barbados. As you may know, the University of the West Indies has several campuses in Barbados, in Trinidad and Tobago, in Antigua and Barbuda, in Jamaica, and also we have what's called the Open Campus. Today, what we're hoping to do is to show you a presentation that chronicles the history of our project, and then leave about 10 minutes or so at the end for questions and answers. Just a little bit about how we came to this project. I teach curriculum studies at the School of Education in UWI. Conroy Hall, who is a member of the Jamaica team, he teaches teachers at the Shortwood Teachers College in Jamaica, and our colleagues at Louisiana Tech were also teacher educators. And as we came together as a project group, we were trying to figure out what we should focus on. In all of our work with our students, we realized that even though lesson planning was a critical component of what we did, the outcome of the lesson planning and of implementation was often quite shaky. It was less than we expected. And so we started wondering about what could be some of the reasons for that. So we did a couple of things in the beginning when we first came together as a team. One of them was to develop a questionnaire that asked about teachers' challenges with creating lessons and with implementing lessons. The second thing we did was to think collectively about a STEM instructional planning model that we could then share with each other, share with the teachers, and look at how that model might facilitate better planning, better implementation. The nature of the project shifted a bit as we went along, but you will see as the video unfolds what exactly happened in the project. Okay, so I believe my colleague Janelle is ready to go. Janelle, is this correct? Okay, there we go. So she is showing the video of what happened in our project.
Welcome to Flight 876-246-318, round trip to Jamaica, Barbados, and Louisiana. Our in-flight crew features a team of amazing educators from Jamaica, Barbados, and Louisiana. Today's flight starts out first with our stop in 2020, where we create effective lesson plans. Then our final destination will be in 2021, where we will look at the implementation of these plans. Now let's meet our in-flight crew. Please have a look at our in-flight magazine on Google Sites, which documents some of our attractions for today's flight. The link to this magazine will be placed in the chat. Our in-flight entertainment will be displayed on the screen in front of you. Let's have a look at some of the highlights of stage 1 of our group's journey. Welcome to our presentation on effective STEM lesson planning. Our team's vision. If we provide teachers with a comprehensive lesson planning model, then this will allow them to construct a solid foundation on which to improve the teaching and learning process. Our team's achievements. We developed a lesson planning needs survey and an inquiry-based integrated STEM lesson planning model for grades 4 through 12. Our lesson planning model was pilot tested with a primary school teacher in Barbados and is being pilot tested with pre-service secondary teachers in Jamaica. Our goal: to create an effective lesson planning model to be used by pre- and in-service teachers. Stay tuned for more on effective lesson planning. Let's have a look at the progression of the STEM lesson planning model. In stage 1, determine the student's entry level, their competency or readiness for the content, their learning preferences and interests. In stage 2, integrate content based on your curriculum. In stage 3, integrate STEM by identifying the NGSS disciplinary core idea or ideas that you wish to bring out in your lessons. and then the science practices. Identify the engineering practices, mathematics practices, interdisciplinary concepts, and any technology practices and products that would be relevant to your lesson. Stage 4, plan an inquiry-based unit for the total duration of that topic. And in this unit, you will choose various levels of inquiry. In stage 5 or final stage, choose a lesson planning template that uses the inquiry model. Plan each lesson using UDL principles. Decide on your learning outcomes, assessments, resources, and activities. Now let's look at the reasons behind various aspects of our lesson planning model. Now, what do you need to assess the learner's needs so that you can identify challenges and possible misperceptions? Why do we use a unit planning approach? To encourage coherent planning across a series of lessons and basically alert the teacher to different forms of inquiry-based learning. So this lesson planning model can be used to plan either a series of lessons as well as a single lesson. Now let's look at the teacher's reflections on their experience with using the STEM planning model, in particular the one for the primary level. Now the topic that she was planning for was looking for patterns in weather to make predictions. And so in this lesson, students create and learn how to use basic weather instruments, the rain gauge, the wind vane, the anemometer to collect data and use this information to make weather predictions on current conditions about weather in the future. First question, how does the STEM planning model facilitate effective lesson planning? She states that it helped me focus on the important science and engineering practices of the lesson and encouraged me to think about how to incorporate more interaction in the lesson and incorporate more student-teacher discussion. Next one, how does the STEM model facilitate inquiry-based learning? Well, it encouraged my children to do more troubleshooting. For example, the children had many problems with the design and construction of the anemometer seen to your left and had to investigate variables such as what size cup works best, how to stabilize the structure, and how to choose the best straws because biodegradable straws, though healthy for the environment, are a bit weak. Next, how did the model facilitate integration? Well, first of all, they had to measure the amount of rainfall using the rain gauge. And they had to measure in millimeters and then convert to centimeter. So here we see the math. And then we see math again when they had to collect the numerical data and represent it using a graph. And then there was a bit of English because now there was comprehension based on weather and climate as well as spelling tests. What were some of your challenges with the STEM planning model? Honestly, I had no idea there were so many STEM and technology standards and practices. Another thing is implementing an inquiry-based science lesson took much longer than I thought. By selecting our in-flight magazine on Google Sites, you can see further details about the actual lesson plan that was used by the teacher in Barbados and the lesson plan that was utilized by the students from the Shortwood Teachers College, as well as their templates. The questionnaire was pilot tested after it was developed using Jamaican students that attended Shortwood Teachers College, as well as those that were part of the You Teach program in Louisiana. And the purpose of the pilot was to basically see if our questions made sense to them, if they understood them, and if there was need for any further clarification. Then the questionnaire was administered as a pre-survey. And here are the results. At first, the students were asked a few demographic questions, such as name, email, and most importantly, we got their consent. But as you can see from this graph, the students didn't just teach biochem and physics, but a wide range of scientific disciplines, inclusive of math. Now, the questionnaire had other questions, like tell us about your pedagogy. And most importantly, we wanted to focus on the areas that said, tell us about your struggles in teaching in a traditional and in an online environment. And here we can see the results for the struggles in the classroom for both implementation of lessons and planning of lessons. Now let's look at our students' experiences. Classes began in October 2020 because of COVID-19 issues. However, the pre-survey was administered to the second year class. Prior to practicum, students had classes in science, pedagogy, lesson planning, and implementation. The post-survey was experienced or administered in May of 2021 in the midst of their practicum. Now let's look at the successes experienced by the student teachers during their practicum experience in the online environment by comparing the results of the pre and post survey. We see where differentiated activities decreased by 2%, so they got better at carrying out differentiated activities in the online environment. Conducting experiments improved from 58% to 40%. Wonder why? And then the integration of tools for synchronous and asynchronous learning decreased from 67% to 60%. So there was a 7% improvement recorded. Now, let's examine some of their challenges experienced during practicum. Now, the whole idea of managing content, wow, went up. Administering a variety of assessments in an online setting also went up. Documenting the student challenges during the lesson went up. Providing tasks for mastery of STEM concepts went up, and using resources at home to carry out investigations also increased. Please fasten your seatbelts, remain seated as we're experiencing a bit of turbulence as we examine the findings of these interviews. Some students were expecting their practicum experience to consist of face-to-face classes. Instead, they were thrusted into an online environment because of COVID-19. Some enjoyed this online experience because they got to use their simulations. Some were still uncertain about what exactly should be included in their lesson plans because different lecturers had different expectations. However, the classmates banded together, planned together, taught each other the tools, and basically practiced on each other. Lessons learned. Differentiation was utilized in lessons using simulations and collaborative groups formed in breakout rooms. The pre-service teachers were heavily impacted by their technical knowledge, their pedagogical knowledge of how to teach online, and the peer and supervisor support that they received, as well as other administrative issues. As we come to the end of our journey, here are some of the ingredients that we think are necessary for the student-teacher success in the online environment. There needs to be training in the effective use of online tools in the curriculum. There has to be collaboration amongst the students themselves, amongst the lecturers, and between the students and the lecturers. And administrators and lecturers really need to be in agreement as to what they expect of the student teacher. Remember to keep your seatbelts fastened. And thank you for flying or taking flight 876-246-318 round trip to Jamaica, Barbados, and Louisiana. We do hope you have enjoyed your experience with us today.
Hello again, folks. This is Claudette. A big shout out and thank you to Janelle for putting together that tremendous presentation. And I have to tell you, we were up for hours last night So Janila has really done a tremendous job for us. And this is why the presentation is as wonderful as it is. I'd like to invite the project members to speak a little bit about the project. But before that, I'd like to invite questions from the audience. So please go ahead.
Just so you're aware, Claudette, the audience cannot open their microphones. So we do have some questions in the chat. If you can check, I think there were several of obviously asking if they can get the presentation, but also commenting on how beautiful and creative the presentation is. But there was a question here. Let me see. It was in Spanish. But then translated to English, it says, what is the lowest skill in STEM? And then she says, it's from Sylvia. In my elementary school, reflecting is lower. I'm not sure exactly what she might be referring to, but do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure I am either quite so much. I think it's more of a comment. The basis of the question was, what's the lowest skill in STEM? I'm not sure if it's not very specific. So I would
assume of the students.
I'm not sure. It just says what is the skill that's kind of the. Let's see if there's a little.
Okay, I'm seeing a comment from Carmen and Danielle, and she's saying is wondering and so on. So I'm thinking perhaps she is referring to the students.
Possibly, yes.
And so one of the comments that I would like to make is that out of this project, out of the second year of the project, came 2 seed grants. One seed grant is looking at the implementation of the STEM planning model. And the second one is looking at the use of virtual manipulatives in mathematics. So if I could speak very quickly to the first one, which is the pilot testing and implementation of the model. One of the teachers who's participating in that, she teaches 3 to 4 year olds. And so for me, I mean, the thinking STEM, the ability of the child is just as Carmen said, the basic STEM ingredient is curiosity and wondering and knowing that you, the child, are empowered to pursue what it is you are wondering about. Not just what the teacher is wondering about, but what you are wondering about. And then the teacher facilitates going about finding out about this thing that you're wondering about. For example, the nursery teacher in the group, the children noticed that when they came back to school, the plants, so they came back after, I guess, not being there during COVID, and the plants in the little garden outside their classroom had all died. And so they started wondering about how would we keep our plants alive? Why did they all die? And so she has taken that question as the center of her inquiry-based unit that she's designing based on the planning model that we developed in the group. And so if the question was about the basic level of skill for a child, it really is curiosity, just this wanting to know, the quest for knowledge. Thank you. I have no idea if that answered the question.
I think that's great information. We do have quite a few questions in Spanish, and we have a few more minutes, so I'll do my best to translate those for you all. One of the questions was, can you please elaborate in detail on the planning model you used?
The planning model, as I just said, it's we have a seed grant that is now looking at using the model. So there's a group of 6 teachers in Barbados and 1 in Dominica who are, right as we speak, using the model to design units of STEM lessons. They'll be implementing their units of work when the school term starts. And in Barbados, school is beginning on September the 20th. One of our team members, Cheryl, has been participating in that seed grant. So Cheryl, I wonder, can I put you on the spot to talk a little bit more about learning about and implementing the model? Cheryl?
Yes, Claudette.
Thank you.
Okay, so as Claudette said, we're in the process of making our plans so that we can go forward and use the model in school when we start. I'm starting a little earlier than the public school teachers, so we have to get a little bit of a rush on getting it done. But the plan itself, we had to, first of all, we had to make sure that we had know our content, and therefore you go to your syllabus, that your curriculum that is provided by your ministry, and you use that, as well as going to the NGSS standards, the ISTE standards, the NCTM standards that are there on the website. So you can find them, they're there, available, free, that you can see, to find out the standards for STEM that will be used to implement, that will be going along with your syllabus. And you will see from there how you can integrate everything. So this is what we did first. We first looked at our content map, and in our mapping, we looked at also where our language, math, other, even SEL standards could come into play with along with what we were doing. But we also had to look at, anytime you're going to go forward with a subject, you have to look at where you're coming from and where you're going to go in the future. So for my class is class 3, which are 9 to 10 year olds. And I had to therefore look at what they would have come up with, but not just from class 2, but also from the infants reception right through. What would they have come up with? What knowledge are they bringing to the classroom at that point in time? And also I have to look at where are they going on from there to get an idea of what I need to do with what they come with and what I can help them to go forward with for the next class. So when we have all of that, and all of that is consisted in our content map, our content area, we then look at taking what we're planning to do out of each unit. So we had a more or less, as for the start, this is the hurricane season in our region. And I'm starting with anything to do with that, because obviously it's in our environment. The children are going to be discussing this. This is all part of what is actually happening with them. And that's also, which is what we try to do, always put what is coming on, what's going on in the surroundings with what we're doing. So we're doing weather and climate. And we look at what NGSS standards have and what we must look at the core ideas, the simply core ideas that they have, the cross-cutting concepts. We look at also what STEM practices we need to implement and what may not be implemented at our stage. For example, I found that technology was not used as much according to the standards in my units, what I wanted to plan in my units. So these are what we're trying to do as we go along. And then as we're trying to see what type of model we're going to use in the inquiry-based model learning plan. And we've realized that we'll be doing a more or less we're doing a more
Guided
structure, guided inquiry-based type of learning, where the teacher will probably just set out questions for the children, propose questions, and they will find ways how to answer them. How can they get the answers to these considering their environment and everything. So this is basically how we're going about our planning. As I said, we're in the initial stages of doing this. And it's very interesting. It is a lot of work, it's a lot of content. As I said, as Janelle rightly said, it is a lot to get in your mind and to also to refocus the attention on what you're doing. So it's a lot of work that has to be done with all the teachers and Claudette included involved. I hope that answers some of the questions when it came to looking at the planning.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you, Claudette.
Allison, are there other questions?
There are a few other questions, but unfortunately we've run out of time. So I will do my best to briefly give a few answers to some of the basic ones that were regarding asking if there was a way to download the presentation in Spanish. There is, I don't believe you all have made a presentation in Spanish. I think it was just in English, correct?
Yes, it was just in English.
Yes. So, but the good news is for those of you putting your emails here and requesting to be sent, the presentation to be sent, you all will have access to all presentations that happened yesterday and today via a Google Drive folder that we will be creating. So all of you will be able to go in and find any presentation that has been delivered yesterday and during today as well. So please know that will be made available after the seminar. Other than that, team, I just want to thank you all so much for all your hard work, for all the tireless hours of preparation. And as I always say, reminding everyone, especially those of you who have just joined us for this presentation, all of our project teams, this team included, they work voluntarily. So this is a volunteer project on top of their everyday endeavors. So please know they've put a lot of work into this, and we really appreciate you participants joining us and taking part in this wonderful knowledge being shared by this team. So team, thank you so much. Really grateful for your presentation, and everyone else, we will be having another presentation in Spanish beginning, let's see, in about 10 minutes. So please do hang around. We'll have interpretation for the Spanish into English and Portuguese, and we'll take a break right now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, team, and thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, everyone in our team.
Yes. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Conroy. Yes.
Thank you, Conroy.
Thanks,